Hello, everyone, and welcome to the What Now Liberals panel. And now let's meet the panel. Here are writer, consultant, and TV political analyst Sherman Singleton, political commentator and the host of and producer of YouTube's Secular Talk, Kyle Kulinski. Online community in the United States, Marcos Melitsas, Sirius XM host, television commentator, and the former State Department official, Naira Haq. A leading progressive voice, author, and CNN political commentator, Sally Cohn. Director of progressive programming for Sirius XM and political analyst for NBC, MSNBC, Zerlina Maxwell.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So, guys, we are going to have a very, very interesting and robust conversation with you. The title of this, of course, is What Now Liberals? I, being a conservative, will be just as fascinated as you guys to sort of hear from our panelists as we embark on this journey together. So, I want to start with Marcos, and then I want to just go down the line and get a response from everyone. So, we've all been hearing about the idea of a blue wave. There's a blue wave coming in November. Yet, when you look at history, according to PolitiFact, according to Forbes, the office, the president, the party of the president, I should say, typically loses around 32 seats. There's only been twice with FDR and George W. Bush where they actually gained seats. So a lot of people would wonder, is there really a blue wave, or what we expect to happen in November is just keeping in sync with historic precedent?
I think you're confusing blue wave with causation. There is going to be, by all indications, a blue wave. We've seen that in the run-up to this election, in the special election results. If you extrapolate Democratic performance before this general election through special elections and last year's November elections, that would put about 120 Republican House seats in play. Now, nobody's claiming that there are 120 in play, but we are at a point where you're looking at potential 50, 60 seats. We have our fundraising numbers, obviously, which are just unbelievable. Double up Republican fundraising in Q3. We just got the early vote numbers for first day in Nevada last night, and they literally have doubled up from 2014 on that first day. They are almost at presidential level numbers. And this is Clark and Washoe County, Reno and Vegas. Washoe is actually a swing county, it's a 50-50 county, and Democrats are outperforming Republicans by 15 points in that early vote. All indications are that it's going to be this massive wave. The fact that Trump is president absolutely is a factor. If Hillary Clinton was president right now, we'd be facing a populist as Democrats, just by history.
Right, of course.
So Trump is a factor, but I mean, it's also a factor that Republican policies are incredibly unpopular.
Right, and we're gonna get to that.
Right.
We are gonna get to that.
And they have been pushing that, and McConnell's helping.
We only have an hour. Can we really get to it?
Well,
This is a
we'll
lot.
do a cursory level.
So, but, so absolutely. I mean, there's a way. Trump is a factor, but Trumpism is also, I think, a factor that almost magnifies it by double.
So, what's your take on this blue wave? Should we really expect it? I read a lot of analysts, and some folks are saying, well, be careful. Even David Axelrod said, Democrats should be careful not to overpromise this. He recently said a few weeks ago on CNN. What's your take?
I think the numbers are going to get tighter and tighter, because that's just the nature of what happens when you get closer to Election Day. Even people who have left the Republican Party or left the Democratic Party often come back to home base, particularly in these types of elections. So watching out for that. And also watching out for not getting sucked into the brand name, right? And like Beto has become a brand name and has gotten very many people excited around the country, but his actual registration numbers in Texas are worrisome. You don't have the Latino registration or Democratic registration there to be able to turn out the guaranteed votes. And so for someone like Beto, I think him even getting within 3 or 4 points of Ted Cruz is actually a win. That sets him up very well for the long term. So not thinking that it has to be all or nothing, and looking at a lot of these local races. At the end of the day, politics is local. It doesn't matter if somebody in New York, and sorry guys, we're in LA, love a senator, can senatorial candidate from Texas, the people from Texas have to be the ones decided in charge of and to get out the vote. And that's what to look at, I think, for the midterms to the 2020, is what kind of energy has gotten into changing the electorate, changing the electoral map, and really building new party structures.
So Zerlina, Democrats only need 24 seats to be able to take the House. As Naira just alluded, the race is getting tighter, significantly tighter. I think that's why you are beginning to see the president travel all over the place, really trying to gin up Republican voters to turn out, even though his name isn't on the ballot. However, there's a very interesting dynamic that Republicans may lose the House, but gain a seat or two in the Senate. We saw that happening before in 1962 with John F. Kennedy. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, this year is just a bad terrain for Democrats in the Senate. You have 10 states where Democrats are running for re-election, where Trump won just in 2016. And so, that's not fun for Democrats to try to save seats in a state like Missouri or Tennessee, try to gain a seat or save a seat in Florida. But I do think that, to piggyback off what Marco said, this is a different moment. I just feel like this election is a little bit different than all the other elections. We always say it's the most important, but this is the one that feels like that actually is the truth. Not just because of the policies that are impacting communities of color and marginalized people, but also because of climate change. And now we know we have a time limit in terms of when we can actually do something. So if we don't change the makeup of at least one branch of government in this election, we're going to head in the wrong direction for the foreseeable future, and that means clean air and clean water. So I just think there's so much at stake right now that this election feels more important than all of the others. And it's unfortunate that in the Senate we have such red terrain to challenge and try to at least keep the balance of power in the Senate at parity, right? Or at least try to keep it somewhat equal. But the fact of the matter is, yes, it's possible that Democrats could lose seats in the Senate and have a stellar performance in the House. I don't necessarily know that means that the Democratic Party doesn't have a message, or the Democratic Party as a whole has a problem. It's just now in this cycle we have tough terrain. That's
So,
just reality.
Kyle, obviously Donald Trump is a very controversial person. I think we all agree to that. Do you think?
Controversial is a little bit nice.
You think so? Too nice.
I think.
So-
Well, no. I think now post 2016 we have to name it. He's not controversial. He's racist and sexist.
Well, under the ordinary set of circumstances, the economy is doing well, unemployment is significantly low. Most presidents would love to have an environment like this. Why is this not working for Trump?
I'm not so sure it's not going to work for Trump. I think,
Really?
I genuinely don't know what's going to happen. And that's why it's really interesting to follow politics now, because I'm not kidding when I say I think that Donald Trump is probably the greatest con man of all time. And I'm sure that he's the greatest fake populist of all time. Unemployment's low, the economy's doing well. Actually, no, it's not. Just because the unemployment rate is low does not mean that wages are going up. In fact, wages are falling. So, Democrats, every single step of the way, have underestimated Donald Trump, and they never learned their lesson. So, it's really, it's scary to me, because you would think that, in all seriousness, if the Democratic strategists were doing their job properly, this wouldn't even be a conversation for the midterm. We would know it would be a blue wave. Unfortunately, I think Democrats are, they go all in on Russia and the Mueller investigation. Go talk to somebody in the middle of the country. They're more like, I don't know, kind of want to pay my light bill and put food on the table. That's more important than the Mueller investigation. So I think Democrats going all in on the wrong things, and Donald Trump going around the country doing all of these rallies. I think every other president from here on out should steal that and go do rallies while they're in office, because that's a way to speak directly to the people. And when you do that, it actually works in the sense that, he gets to scream fake news all day, and he's going to make his case better than anybody else. So as long as he keeps making his case, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because I don't know what's going to happen in these midterms. I think that Democrats probably will pick up seats, but not as much as everybody's predicting, because I just think he does a good job of doing what he's supposed to do, even though I despise him.
So Sally, to Kyle's point, do you think Democrats really are underestimating Trump and Trump voters going into November? And I ask that question because in November of 2016, no one thought Trump was going to win. Trump himself didn't even think. Do you think it's a mistake to underestimate him, to Kyle's point, as we talk about this idea of the blue wave?
I mean, obviously, it's a mistake. And look, he has, one of the things that he has done is defied the conventional political gravity. Now the question is, does he then remake the rules of those gravity, or does he, I think, look, this is a time of tremendous flux. And I always think it's wrong to underestimate. Sorry guys, the coffee's still good.
That's good.
And I also think there's a danger in, right, we got to play the expectations game, and there's a danger in saying, oh, automatic blue wave. And if you actually hear it, the Republicans are saying blue wave because they want to motivate their people. So I think we can't overstate anything or take anything for granted. Now, what I do think is interesting that's happening right now in the midterms, and I think is poised to reshape politics, hopefully in a constructive way for the next generation, is that you're actually watching the Republicans really abandon their values, right? And try to justify their embrace of Donald Trump. You know, I mean, you go to the panels here, right? You're seeing it. It's people who despised Donald Trump and everything he stood for now are embracing it. People who say, well, I don't like the way he says things, I don't like, right, but I love the policies he's giving us, right? And so you have a moment where conservatism, which, you know, like, which I ideologically am opposed to, but had in the sort of recent history of our country come to stand for values, right, as sort of synonymous, are abandoning, morphing, and showing how in flux those values can be. And by the way, in interesting ways, although not consistent ways, right, we saw that Trump in the election was trying to market himself as a pro-LGBT rights candidate, and in office is not governing that way at all, as we've seen even again today. But you saw his voters say, yeah, we like that he's like a pro-LGBT candidate. And you're like, what fucking Republican Party is this? So that's interesting, right? And like similarly on trade, right? Like, listen, I'm gonna say it, like, there are aspects of his trade policy. If I had to rewrite NAFTA, I would have done some similar things. Not everything, but like the guy put an increase, a mandatory increase in the minimum wage in his free trade policy. That is antithetical to conventional republicanism. And so you have, right, you have the Republicans sort of trying to figure out, well, how can we contort ourselves to embrace this guy who seems to have this supernatural appeal and whatever, and at the same time wrestle with their moral concerns with some of the things you're doing. I think it's very encouraging that we're seeing so many Republicans, especially Republican women, conservative women, be appalled by Donald Trump separating families at the border. It is in fact appalling. And at the same time, what you're seeing is Democrats recommit to a set of core values. And there's been a lot of talk, I think, about some of the ideologically different people running, but we finally are standing for something.
So that gets to my next point. So let's say we make it through midterms, and I don't want any one of you guys to just jump into this question. We make it through midterms. Democrats, you guys, I would argue as a Republican, should not make the same mistake Republicans did by having 15 candidates run for office. What's the message for the Democratic Party as they prepare to go into 2020?
I got that one.
Jump in.
Medicare for all. Free college, living wage, end the war.
I agree with a lot of what you said. Some of what you said is the same things
But I do think that, some of what you said I agree with, but I also think that the contrast needs to be more clear. It's what we stand for, yes, Medicare for all, but we also are not the party putting children into cages. And I think that is actually the Democratic message, getting back to Sally's point.
Hold on, guys, hold on.
But I do think that what Sally said about core values is actually what this election, not just in 2018, but also in 2020 is about. And just to sort of contrast what you said about the 15 candidates, I actually think we need 15 candidates. I want 15 candidates to stand on the stage and tell me why I should support them. And I think that having a large array of candidates and a diverse set of policies that we can all debate, and you can boo me and you can debate it, and then we can make a choice and vote for who we like the best.
So,
We're gonna vote and we're gonna figure it out.
First of all, it wasn't a mistake to have 15 candidates since you have the White House.
Right.
It actually worked out. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure what mistake we'd be making in that regard. We're going to have 22 right now. At my count, we're at 22, and we may have more. Now, serious candidates is a different story, right? But to me, you can talk about what the party message is, but it's utterly irrelevant. I mean, the Republican Party message used to be national security, right? He's bought by the Russians. It used to be family values. Like the most morally degenerate asshole in American history.
And the deficit, don't forget the deficit.
Sorry, deficit. So that was the party message. He came in, he said, I'm the message. We're going to have somebody who's going to end up as our nominee, whether it's Elizabeth Warren, whether it's Kamala Harris, I'll be one of those. Bernie Sanders. Is that the price of admission for this primary field is going to be Medicare for all.
Good.
It's going to be affordable college.
I want to go and actually respond to the audience. Bernie Sanders lost the primary by 4 million votes, and most of that a lot of people still support Bernie Sanders, and some of the policies that he laid out, he did not win the primary. You can articulate your point of view without yelling over it, okay? What I'm saying is that rehashing that is counterproductive. There are children in cages, and if you guys are really progressive, we can work together to try to get this fucker out of the White House.
First and foremost, there is something wrong. There is something wrong if we, as the Democrats or the left, take on the nastiness and incivility of the right in order to try and do it. So you know what? We're better than that. And that includes all of you. And I'm sorry, excuse me, I was a Bernie supporter. And by the way, when I endorsed Bernie, I got booed because I said nice things about Hillary. That is not who we are. So I'm sorry. If you don't want to be respectful, then you really got, because that's what we are. Sorry, I'm not done. Hang on. That is actually what the Democrats stand for. That is what progressives stand for. Respecting all people and including the people. And here's the other thing. This is true. I do think that the future fight in our politics and in our side is about, look, we are having a reshaping in politics where I think we are moving away from conventional left and conventional right toward a politics of populism versus elitism. And what the future, next 20 years of fight will be, both here and around the world, is about what kind of populism we have. Do we have an exclusionary, hate-fueled populism? Or do we have an inclusive justice for all populism? Now, I do think it is a mistake if the Democrats, listen, Hillary Clinton on a lot of issues, I was right there, and I voted for and I support Florida candidates, so I'm not, right, get these people are complicated. By the way, there are other politicians who support stuff Bernie did, and there are a lot of things, but here's the thing, we have to have a populist candidate.
But additionally, I want us to be able to have some nuance, because just because I work for Hillary Clinton doesn't mean I'm some centrist shill. You're making many assumptions about me. But I was a feminist. The point was that I actually was afraid of Donald Trump being the president, as he is today, and children are in cages. This is a moral issue for me. So I got involved in politics because I felt an obligation to try to do something.
So we obviously see that there are some slight differences within the party as far as how to tackle Trump. Could that be something that played to Trump's favor as far as winning re-election?
Absolutely, we eat our own, and we shouldn't do that.
If the base ends up shouting down women of color because
that's
they
a
need
problem.
to
I have a
win
problem
more than
with
they need
that.
to be supported, that will ultimately be a problem for the Democratic Party, yes.
Can I just
Yeah,
jump in
really black
real
women,
quick?
that's a
Okay.
really good way to get votes.
The only point I want to make is that I think the audience believes, and I happen to agree with them, that the best way to defeat Donald Trump in the year 2020 is with Bernie Sanders. In order
for Bernie Sanders to win the Democratic primary, he's going to have to get women who look like me to show up and vote for him. That is just absolutely true. That's just math. You don't necessarily have to like me or agree with me, but that is just an electoral truth.
So since we're talking about Bernie Sanders, the DNC, and Marcos, I want to get your take, and Sally, I want to get your take. The DNC overruled the superdelegate system. They recently changed that because a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters were not very happy with how they thought the system was against Bernie Sanders.
The superdelegate having a vote was absolutely a problem for the party. It was a problem in 2008 when Hillary Clinton dragged out the primary with Obama having the mathematical lead with actual earned delegates, and she hoped that the superdelegates were gonna bail her out. Same thing happened in 2016. There's some sort of poetic justice in there, I guess. But after railing against the superdelegates, Bernie stuck in the race after he was mathematically eliminated because he thought the superdelegates were going to bail him out. I mean, it was patently absurd from the beginning. But the media only has these charts, and he put in the superdelegates, and it skews what the total numbers were. So I love the fact, this compromise that they came up with, which basically says that they don't get a vote in the first round unless it's by acclamation.
I don't know. Get rid of those.
It's easy to sit in a room and boo the party, right? The superdelegates are people who are busting their ass for the party, doing the job of getting candidates recruited, helping get them funded, having an organized party. These are people who give their heart and soul to the party. Now you may disagree with them, but they get a say in how the party runs. And here's the beauty of it. You guys can do the work too, and you can be a superdelegate. But you can't sit It is democracy. They're not allowed.
Our reality, let's level set with our reality. Our reality right now is we are a two-party system. That has flaws, fundamental flaws. But at the end of the day, our people don't show up to vote the same way that Republicans show up to vote. We got to get it together, register, turn out, and show up. You don't have to love every single thing about the candidate. You have to just show up. Republicans are wonderful about getting in line. We demand that we have to have the love and ultimate respect of our people. This entire concept of I can't vote for the lesser of two evils, guys, it's a binary choice. It is a binary choice at the end of the day. That's going to be the cultural challenge that we face as Democrats, is how do we actually turn out our people in 2020 when there has been bad blood prior to that?
Marginalized people who are negatively impacted by these policies, I mean, that's my focus every day when I wake up. It's not like Bernie Sanders or who's going to be in 2020 the candidate and who's going to inspire me. It's actually the children in the cages. It's actually the women on the border who are being raped and filtered into sex.
Are you groaning children in cages?
And so for me, it's actually about the people who are. Don't talk over me.
Guys.
If you don't want to hear us talk, I don't understand
We
why
will
you
have a
came.
Q&A.
I don't understand why you came. You can wait for the Q&A to speak over me.
Go ahead.
But the point is that I actually feel really deeply about the marginalized communities that are impacted by these policies. And And so yes, I will vote for Bernie Sanders if that means that that's the person that's going to beat Trump, because I actually care about the marginalized people. It's not just about like supporting my guy, it's actually because I care about people, and that's why I am a progressive. That's why I thought we're all here. If it's not, then getting booed by liberals. If that is why we lost. That's why we lost. Black people.
I'm sorry. I completely agree. And let's just be clear about a couple things. First of all, the way elections work is you actually have to get people to vote for yourself. And let me tell you that in this country, in the future of elections, and the biggest failure of the Democratic Party has not just been, and I agree, I believe that the Democratic Party, because of its historic elite, big bank, Wall Street, big business friendly policies, has abandoned the white working class. But let me be clear.
The working class, not white.
Wait, hang on. Can I make my damn point? Thank you, Kyle. I will not finish my point. Has abandoned the white working class. But the problem with the Democratic Party writ large has been that it has acted for the last 30 years like those are the only voters who matter. And that you only legitimately win an election if you win a majority of white people. Now let me tell you, that is not only not true, but that is not the future of politics. And the Democratic Party, including, by the way, some of those candidates who we're talking about now, have ignored appealing to, valuing, treating seriously women, people of color, and immigrants as the future of the Democratic Party, because there is some sense, what I will say, it is an implicit white supremacy of a sense that we are a less legitimate party if that is how we win, which, by the way, is racist and it's bullshit. So, now, let me also say, I'm sorry, but this is not how we treat one another. And part of the problem is, I'm going to say this, part of the problem is that those same working class white folks feel like y'all are mean and condescending to them, right? Just like you're being mean and condescending now. And that is not who we should be. And there is a problem in this country, and I will tell you it is true in my experience, it is true in my experience that Democrats and liberals are nicer to humanity in general and our policies and our principles, but we are mean to people in particular. And you know what? Conservatives can be really nice to people in particular, even though they are mean to humanity in general. So you know what? You want people to actually vote for your candidate? Then you know what? Appeal to them. Don't just be mad at them that they don't see the world the way you do. Actually make an effort. The reason
I'm subjecting it is because I feel like the policies of the Democratic Party should be for working people, full stop. So you're just mentioning that, oh, if you're fighting for the working class, you're only fighting for the white working class. I actually think that's really condescending towards people of color who are working class, because these policies that we talk about that the Democratic Party should be in favor of, like Medicare for all and free college and a living wage and ending the wars and ending the drug war and a new Deal, these are good for all working people. So No, because and I'm not saying you did this on purpose. That's why I interjected, because I didn't think you meant it when you said, "Oh, it's all about the white working class." My point was, it's about the working class.
Wait! Can I defend my point? My point is that when we only enumerate, when we say working class, in practice, the way then the Democratic politics play out is we actually treat the white working class as though they matter.
Right.
I'm being very explicit.
From the perspective of that's how the Democratic Party speaks about it, not how she.
Right. I'm not saying, for instance, that Medicare for all doesn't actually hurt. I mean, it doesn't actually. Sorry, don't quote that. Medicare for all helps working women, working white men, people of color, immigrants. It helps everyone. The problem is that Democrats have historically, for the last 34 years, acted as though the group they have to win over, the group they have to sell it to, and therefore the only group that they talk about, care about, and speak to are de facto, without even naming it, the white working class.
So,
that's what I'm talking about.
So let me ask you guys this question. We have seen through recent data that a significant percentage of middle-class white women are starting to abandon the Republican Party. As we talk about how the Democratic Party should form their message going into midterms and beyond, is there room for disenfranchised, disaffected Republicans? Folks who say, you know what, I cannot stick with the Republican Party under Trump. Is there room for those types of voters in the Democratic Party going forward? Marcos?
Michael Cohen, you can keep that guy. You don't want him. White working class women, if you look at the polling, is the single movable demographic right now, in suburban specifically. And they looked good in the polling in 2016, and they ended up voting with basically their husbands. The fun political fact is that single women are 60-40 Democratic, married women about 55-45 Republican. And it doesn't matter if you're never been married, divorced, or widowed. So when you get married, a woman becomes more conservative. If she ends up widowed or divorced, she reverts and becomes more Democrat. So they are a movable demographic. They didn't come through for the Democrats in 2016. When I look at the possibility of a wave, if these white suburban Republican women, if they stick with the polling and they vote Democratic, we're seeing massive, massive gains. If not, we're seeing moderate gains. That's like the big factor as far as I'm concerned. So I hope that would get them. There's definitely room for them. I mean, we're talking, these aren't people who they're not the racist, Trumpian base. These are educated women who are struggling with a lot of things.
But if they were to beg the question, and Sally mentioned this a few moments ago, there are some things about the Democratic message that I like, but I don't feel accepted. I do feel that the message is sort of mean to people who don't sort of follow this script of what it means to be a progressive or a democratic socialist or just a Democrat by and large. What do you say to those people, like a purity test?
Yeah, purity politics is going to be a problem for the party going forward. It really is, right? We have extremists in the left, there are extremists on the right. We need to be able to turn back to a time when we were the big tent, right? Like, diversity is about a big tent, multiple ideas, moving forward in a general direction. And I think, frankly, setting the compass for normal, moral, and not treasonous is actually a win right now. You don't really have to do much more than that to be an alternative to Donald Trump and to welcome some of the thinkers, the conservative thinkers, into the party fold.
I also think that, Black women are an emerging demographic group. Women of color are a demographic group that vote in frequently in elections at all levels, and we're a voting bloc that needs to be paid attention to. And I know that it's possible, frequently we're not listened to, they only come to you the 3 weeks before the election to sort of get you to turn out. I worked on the campaign, I know what happened there. So a lot of the messages that people think that we should have been saying, those people like me were on the inside actually making the argument for that. But I do think that the Democratic Party, in order to win, we have to focus on the voters that actually win elections, and we don't do that. We focus on tangential things. Obviously getting back to being normal and not treasonous is true, but if we actually focus on the demographic groups that win elections, we would actually win them.
It is.
I think it's about populism. The original question was, hey, can we win over, the moderate Republican, if you will? I think it's about populism because when you look at the polls, you find that a lot of these issues we would typically consider like far left issues, they're actually very mainstream issues. So raising the minimum wage, for example, 80% of the American people want to raise the minimum wage. And I think that populism cuts across party lines, and it makes it so that you can really build bridges and have not just victories, but overwhelming victories for what would typically be considered far left policies.
Dichotomy here, and if there's one thing I actually do hope Democrats learn from Donald Trump is, look, the guy is not afraid to fight for what he wants that appeals solely to his base, even though he is doing horrific, immoral, and unpopular things. He does not care. Now, meanwhile, you have Democrats who support things that are overwhelmingly popular, right? We have some disagreements around the edges, and those are important. And the majority of what constitutes the left politics, wildly popular, both with the base and with those 3 swing voters. And we fucking cave all the time. I mean, look at the Democrats recently making a deal, say, oh, we're gonna work with the Republicans to let you get a few of your judicial nominees through under the hopes that you then don't do anymore, and then the Republicans turn around and screw them and pass more and lame duck. Like, the sick irony is, they're not afraid to stand for something, and people don't like what they stand for. We're afraid to stand for something, and people actually like
tried to
ask
reach
that
out to
question.
suburban white women during the election. That was a strategy that we explicitly tried to do. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because people are racist and they internalize sexism. So you had the 53% of white women that voted for Donald Trump, which we talk about all the time, and we wonder why, and it's because people are more loyal to their race than their gender. That's what we found out in 2016. So I think that, while it's good to try to reach out to those suburban women and try to get them on our side using policy and argumentation to persuade them, why don't we actually try to turn out the people who already support us? I just think that as
you guys, we talk about diversity, African Americans, Hispanics. So Donald Trump received around 35% of the Latino vote. There are some political scientists that argue if he would have received anything less, he probably would not have won. When you think about those numbers, people of color voting for someone like Trump, what can Democrats do to bring those people back to their side?
I would argue there's, in 2016, there were 92 million voting eligible Americans who did not turn out and vote. I would probably guess about 65% of those are Democratic-leaning constituencies. We have this enormous pool of people. That 35% of Latinos, they want to vote for Trump.
The largest voting bloc, was non-voters. So how do we get those people engaged? That's fundamentally what we did in the Obama campaign. I mean, America elected a black president. I was part of that campaign and I was still surprised because we changed the map, right? You change the map and that's not something that you do just on election day. You have to have those investments years out to be turning out your base, reaching your base, but also bringing more people into the fold.
But how do you do that? How do you mobilize your base and target and mobilize new voters when every single day the news is Trump, 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 and people are saying, you know what, I'm just sick of politics?
You ignore the news. The news cycle is actually just an ecosystem that we are all participants in, and we, talk about whatever tweet happened in the morning, but people are living their lives day to day. People are dealing with issues day to day, and they're dealing with healthcare crises and medical bills and, poor education and housing, and so there are issues that are in people's faces every day when they wake up, and that's what this is about. I mean, fundamentally, this moment is so hard for me because I feel like politics has become a spectacle, and this is about policy and people, and I think that we've lost that, and we're so into like applause lines and cheering and booing and like being a part of a team and having a color and wearing a jersey, and then being like, I don't like you because I'm on this side, and I just think that this is so much more important and bigger than that, and I think that we need to get back to I'm not saying this to get applause. I actually really believe it. I didn't get involved in politics because I like to hear myself talk. Got involved in politics because I give a shit. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that.
I'm not happy. It's not happening. I know that's really being honest.
I think that the best way to get the non-voters to vote, and as we were just talking about their giant block of the country, is just you have to speak directly to them and their needs. And I feel like the way, if you let people know, hey, I'm not corrupt and I'm against the establishment and I'm for you, that's the thing that really motivates people. And it really, you can cross ideological lines in that sense and appeal to a very broad base of people if they feel like you're speaking directly to them and not to corporate interests.
Two seats, for example, one in Buffalo, one in San Diego, where the sitting members of Congress, Republicans, were indicted on corruption scandals, right? But that's what it is. It is literally the moral reality of what we have in that binary choice. So turn out the voters, vote for the alternative.
So, Zerlina, let me ask you this question. So, I do agree with you that African American women do play a pivotal role in helping elect Democrats. However, there has been a lingering critique for quite some time that African Americans continue to vote overwhelmingly for the Democratic Party, and a lot of African Americans believe there are issues that are not fully addressed: criminal justice reform, police brutality. How can or what do Democrats need to do to address those concerns so that African Americans can say, you know what, not only am I going to vote Democratic, but I'm going to go out and make sure others do the same?
No, that's a really good question, and I think it's a hard question. because a lot of these issues are systemic and, cultivated over decades. And so you have Democratic politicians who have 4-year, 8-year terms who don't have an incentive to implement policies that won't be enacted, for 10 to 12 years, or changes won't happen far beyond when they're out of office. You see this in Chicago with Rahm Emanuel, who I do not support and who I have a lot of problems with because there are problems that were basically caused by policy after policy, tearing down the projects, moving gang members into the same neighborhood. So you hear about gun violence in Chicago, but you don't necessarily know why it is the way it is right now. And so that's because of political choices made in the short term and not thinking about the long term, and because those people don't care about those communities. Those people don't really care about the people who live there. They care about their reelection. And so I think in terms of holding Democrats accountable, it's absolutely true that, Democratic politicians have made a lot of promises and not necessarily delivered, not just on the local level, but all the way up. I have my issues with Obama, who I worked for in 2008. But I do think that the bottom line is that, you have to get in the game. You actually have to put skin in the game. So if you see the Democratic Party and you see problems within the party, get involved with the party. You infiltrate and change from within. That's what I believe. And so, I couldn't sit back and watch a Hillary Clinton campaign and see that there were issues or ways in which I could add value and sit back and not do anything. So I decided to jump into the campaign and then be the perspective talking about criminal justice, be the perspective talking about reproductive justice and the Hyde Amendment, which actually did push Bernie to the left on the Hyde Amendment, specifically in the primary, because that's something that I care about as a woman of color, because women of color don't have affordable access to reproductive health care in many instances, and it's because of the Hyde Amendment, and that matters. So I think that, in terms of what the Democratic Party can do and how Black people can actually feel like they're being listened to and heard, part of that is we have to get in it. We can't just be on the outside yelling or booing. You have to get involved, and you have to be engaged as citizens. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to, be the campaign manager, but it does mean that you're going to have to try to put some skin in it.
So guys, we're going to open it up for a Q&A. So before we go to Q&A, let's just be very, very clear on this. Just, guys, please listen. I want you to just state your first name and your question, not a commentary, or I will ask you to move on. There's a lot of people who need to ask questions. Go ahead, sir.
Only one question. Kanye is talking about running for Senate from California. How powerful will Kanye be in picking up the youth vote and the African American vote?
Not at all. You actually have to know things.
Go ahead, sir.
Kyle, I've heard that you were willing to debate Ann Coulter. You were all excited, and then she backed out.
Yeah.
That's lame, but I work for Jesse Lee Peterson, and I've tried to get you on his show like 5 times. Sally did it. She
You
had
do
a
this
great
every
time.
you do this every year, man. All right, let someone ask a
Would
question.
you be willing to debate him?
Not only that, I floated a debate with him when Ann Coulter backed out, and he said no.
Move on.
Stop embarrassing yourself.
My name is Nick, and my question is, do you guys really think you can win if you continue to run on campaigns with the feminist, anti-white, pro-open borders, brown communist message? Because I think a red tsunami is coming if you guys continue this.
All right, keep believing that.
I didn't hear a question. Do you think we can win with that? Yeah, I do think we can win with that because I think the emerging majority of people of color is the future of this country. And I also think that if we actually got rid of voter suppression, we would have won in 2016.
There you go.
Traditionally, if the Jill Stein voters had voted for Hillary Clinton, we would have won the That's
The idea that anybody's anti-white, let me just say this, is preposterous.
it is.
I think that one thing.
Okay, so go ahead.
Kyle, Casey here. So this question is just a short one. In what ways can we future-proof the post office to compete with like Amazon and pretty much.
Yeah, I just got a flyer, and somebody handed it to me, and basically the idea is like, let's have banking at the post office. And that's a wonderful idea. Get away from these predatory banks and give people a better option.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Hi, I'm Stan. This is for the entire panel. You were just saying that Republicans just fight and they stick by whatever their message is. They fight and they duke it out and they win. How can Democrats start to do that? Because we used to be the party that used to do that. FDR, President Roosevelt said,
Yes.
"I welcome their hatred," and he kept winning because he stood by good progressive values.
Yeah, black people couldn't vote that. I mean, honestly, I think we have to be honest about the Democratic Party and that we're a coalition of voters and we're gonna have a divergent, series and sets of values and opinions on policy, and that is okay.
Marcus?
Yeah, I think the fact that the price of admission for the presidential, and there's so many candidates, it's going to have to be these incredibly progressive policies. I think the fact that people are now funding Democratic campaigns as opposed to corporate PACs dramatically changes these things. Now elected officials are dependent on those small dollar donors to keep them going, and they're going to have to be responsible.
And it's understanding why Republicans got in line with Donald Trump. He gave them lower taxes, he gave them judicial nominees, and he's going to try to overturn abortion, right? So a very, very discreet, targeted, high-level agenda and appeal to the emotion of the personality, right? We got to get a little bit away from having to love every single person we vote for and actually just vote for the people and the policies.
So thank you. Here's where I'm going to say something to your Bernie supporters. It's one of the reasons I like Bernie and supported him in the primary is I thought what he did for the Democratic Party in getting the party to stop pulling punches on the things we support, but actually just say, I believe in this.
Yes!
Again, there are lots of things, and I think we can still have a big tent for it, but there are a lot of things that those dissident voters will come in that we should be loyal on the policies that we support as Democrats because they help all people, but especially because they help communities of color. We have backed away from those things, and then we allow space to be taken up, suddenly they're anti-white because the Republicans are attacking us more than we're defending ourselves and standing up for those beliefs. And that's a problem, and I think it's because we're afraid to actually be the party we are, which is the party of everyone, but especially the party that is led by and foregrounds the communities who are most left out in this country. I think that there's pride in that and there's power in that.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sean. My question is, what are some big loser issues for Democrats? What are often focused on by candidates that are actually detrimental to their campaigns?
A House candidate should not be running on impeachment right now. Run on those Show that you are the person who speaks for your people, again, in a normal, not corrupt way. That's a very easy path to victory right now.
I agree with that. I think that not just House candidates, but all candidates, because impeachment is a two-step process. You need 218 votes in the House, and you need 67 votes in the Senate to actually remove the president from office. I'm not saying that there's no justification for a lot of investigation should be written back to the House. But if we impeach the president, say we just win the House back and we impeach the president, he's still the president. So I don't know if that's where we should be expending all of our energy, because again, kids in cages. So what are we going to do in the short term to get those kids out of the cages, maybe get some of those folks back with their parents because they were forcibly separated, and that keeps me up at night. And I think that that's where our focus should be, and not.
I agree with both those points, and I'll just add, and I know some people might disagree with this, but I don't think they should focus on Russia.
But nobody is.
No candidate is
No, you're right. I haven't seen much of it.
Okay.
We're
talking about Russia.
The Republicans are framing the Democrats as though they're running on Russia, but it's actually not.
You're right.
They're trying to get much trouble.
Sure.
Go ahead, man.
And policy.
So my name is Sina. I'm a person of color, obviously. And my family voted for Bernie Sanders. We all supported him. And my question was just that obviously racial justice issues and social issues are tremendously important, especially to me. But why can't we all unite under economic issues, things like higher wages and Medicare for all and stuff like that? Because we do have racial issues on one side, but don't those economic issues benefit all of us as a whole? And
The challenge is recognizing that there are systemic issues that connect race and economy.
I don't know, can we like define intersectionality for a moment? Because everything that you just said is an economic issue. Social justice and racial justice are economic issues. You know, lower wages, discrimination, those things impact people's pocketbooks, right? And they impact their ability to be upwardly mobile. And if you have poor education, you actually can't self-determine. If you don't have access to reproductive health care, again, an economic issue. As a woman, which is more than half of the population, if you don't have access to affordable reproductive health care or all the full slate of choices, including abortion, you can't self-determine. You can't do anything. And so I feel like what you said is absolutely true, but there needs to be a more explicit message that shows that all those issues intersect. And intersectionality is actually where we need to be going in terms of a party. And I know that you said that feminism is a bad thing, but all that means is that
Oh no, feminism's great.
No, he's
No,
talking.
Sorry.
I'm here. Right here, because just to articulate what feminism is, it means women are people deserving of equal rights. That's a simple thing. It's not scary, it's not threatening, it literally means women are equal, that's it, right? And so all it is like what you're saying is absolutely true, but we just have to be more explicit on making sure people understand that it is an economic issue when you're being discriminated against. If you can't get fair wages, that is an economic issue, and maybe that's because of your racial identity, right? So I think all of these issues are connected.
Look, there's a historic divide on the sort of center-left between, and this is true of the activist left as well, actually, between a community of people that say, look, if we just fix the economy, we fix everything. And then there's a community of people who say, you know, actually, we've tried to do that at various points in time, but because we did not attend to the way in which economic injustice affects different communities differently, and overlaps and intersects with other kinds of systemic and like built-in inequalities, race, gender, etc., then it didn't work, right? So like we look at the aspects of the New Deal that were huge, and overall had a positive effect and were progressive, but because of how certain communities were locked down, didn't help communities of color, right? Same thing with, returning college grants for returning vets, etc. It's the way Social Security was calculated and how that affected women who didn't work outside the home. Like, you can't, right? So it's not saying, and this is the problem, and this is why I think the Democrats, we really fuck ourselves over, because we are afraid to talk about how, look, things that help, we're afraid to talk about race and gender, etc., in ways that don't feed into this narrative. Or we don't know how to, right? It suggests that we're actually putting each other, which we're not. We're making sure. This is really John Powell stuff, right? This is saying, like, everybody go read Professor John Powell. That what you actually have to do is when you're devising policies and you're developing policies, you look at the communities that are worse off now, and you make sure that your solutions are helping them, and therefore it will help everyone, which we know time and time again is actually the way it works. That is the policy vision. I know we don't talk about policy anymore on the left, but hey, that's the actual
We are currently in a world where it's a given that Democrats are going to win, have like a 7-8 point edge in basically any election, and it's still a 50-50 of how things are going to go because of gerrymandering, because of the electoral college, because the Senate is a fucked up thing from slavery. And so, why is it so hard? The Republicans have no problem cheating to win. You've got it in Georgia, we've got it in North Dakota, it's everywhere. Why are we so afraid of saying, hey, when we win, we're gonna fix this shit so it doesn't happen anymore?
Yeah.
That seems so
I mean, part of it is that some of that requires constitutional amendment.
Not
Senate.
everything, though.
But there's a big movement towards statehood for D.C. and Puerto Rico. And
the fact that D.C. has the same number of electoral votes.
Past the Supreme Court.
Yeah,
past the Supreme Court.
To give felons back their right to vote after the local ways that you build it up, and this is part of the federal system. You gotta engage the local level. Getting the state assemblies and legislators, senates is huge for deep redistricting.
Agreed, but like,
all right, thanks,
why If we win, we can put the Voting Rights Act back in place.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Hi, I'm John from Salt Lake. Big Secular Talk fan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Republicans run on lying to their base, saying things like Dems want to abolish borders or end Medicare. Is that a strategy that works for them? And should we do something similar? Or be more honest, should we go low or go high? I think has been the argument lately. And what would going low look like?
I'd say mock that, first of all. I'd just say mock that. Because that's like the idea of the Democrat, like we get all
This
in
guy
the back
believes
room.
it.
We all got in the back room and we're like, right, so we're all going to abolish borders, right? It's just preposterous. And I feel like that we sit back and let Trump at his rallies just run roughshod and say preposterous things. So I think step one is laugh at that, mock it, check it, and make sure the media is doing their job. Because unfortunately, I think the media will take little sound bites of something salacious or silly he says, and that becomes the news story for 24 hours, as opposed to the 56 factually incorrect policy things Trump said where he lies, and they just kind of let that go.
So guys, we have 5 minutes. I just wanted to get some quick closing remarks from everyone. So Sally, we can start with you.
Yeah, I'm being called way over there. Well, I just want to say on the when they go low, we go high. It was really interesting because I feel like Democrats, the left, writ large, when Michelle Obama said it, and we thought we were going to win, we were all for it. And then when we lost, suddenly we're like, well, that was a fucking bad idea. And, you know, here's the funny thing I think about principles, which is principles are right, period, no matter what. So if you believe, when they go low and go high, you believe it. You believe it whether it's going to work in one moment or is it going to work in another. And what I think is, I will leave us with this, in addition to, I'm just going to agree with everything they say, so I'll say that in advance, but is if we are in a ugly moment in our politics, in our policies, in the things that are becoming normalized in our discourse, in our media. If we let Donald Trump and his acolytes define our values too, define the way we behave, they set our North Star, then we've already lost. Then we have already lost. So this is a moment not to be rethinking, because that's not a matter of tactics, it's a matter of principle. This is not a moment to let them set our agenda. For our moral guidance and our principles, we have to be clear on what we believe in.
I guess in closing, I'll just say, I'll respond on the when they go low, we go high thing. It depends what we mean. So if it means like, oh, when they go low, we should also get in the gutter and like be really bad people, well, no, I don't agree with that. But if it just means like, oh, when they go low, let's fight really, really, really hard, and let's be principled, like Sally was saying, then I totally agree. Let's fight really hard, let's be principled, and I honestly believe that in a real battle of ideas and competing philosophies and ideologies, that doing the right thing is very popular. And I think that this notion that like, oh, now the right is unbeatable or something, we can win if we just stay principled and fight on the issues, and we're anti-corruption, and I think that we'll win in the long term.
I think that, you know, for the next 2 weeks, we need, if you're concerned about the future of the direction of the country, then you need to donate or volunteer or do something tangible to help the party that we all care about. And that's where our focus needs to be, not on whether or not you agree with me or him, or like that's irrelevant, right? Because you know there are people's lives at stake in this particular moment. Additionally, I just think in 2016, you know, the idea that Donald Trump is some sort of political genius when he won by 70,000 votes across 3 states, when one of them had more voter suppression than the margin that he won by. And we had a foreign government attack our election. We had the Comey letter 10 days before. I'm just articulating the facts and the reasoning as to why the outcome was the way it was. And I just think that the election could have gone either way because all of those things were unprecedented. I mean, a foreign government has not attacked our election in as pervasive a way as it did in 2016. And so I think that fundamentally as American citizens, we need to be focusing on pushing the country in a progressive direction, and for the next 2 weeks, whatever you are doing in order to help with that effort, I think that that's where we should be focused.
focus on the ground game, focus on the ground game, build out a bigger party, and have a long-term view.
I'm going to see you and you two, tie-dye, and so quickly ask questions. And,
Okay.
My name is Brian. So basically my question is regarding Medicare for All. I know there's a lot of analysis in terms of how much it's going to cost. I don't see a whole lot of comprehensive kind of analysis on how it's going to be paid for. I know Bernie Sanders talked about tax on Wall Street speculation and increase in obviously income tax and stuff like that. But have you seen anything that really has a real comprehensive analysis of how to pay for it? Because it seems like that kind of is an issue that some Democrats are having in terms of being able to answer.
Well, it saves money, so I always find this conversation a little silly. Because it's like, the real question is, how can we afford to do what we're doing right now? Because
yeah, and I want to get to this. But just quickly, that would be the biggest source of corporate welfare in American history. As a company myself, as a business owner, I would love to get healthcare costs off my books. And then,
really quickly, because I got to wrap up.
Okay. You guys alluded to embracing democratic populism as a strategy, but populist preferences are generally pretty unstable. So how do you actually establish a sustainable policy platform for the party?
Real quick. Anybody? Real quick.
You stick with the basic principles of we actually want to do good by people and we're willing to have a debate of ideas instead of a debate in the gutter. That's the cultural piece of it.
Guys, thank you so much. Thank you.
how do we get my generation to vote? They just don't care. Right out there.